The show Avatar: The Last Airbender is a masterpiece. No one can deny that. Whether it be the animation, the acting, the characters, the world building, all of it is remarkable. And I'm here today to discuss something that has been discussed time and again, but I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. Zutara. Now, this is the couple that everyone is contentious about. Should have they ended up together? Should they not? Was it the writing? Was it the themes? Well, let's discuss. Aang wakes up from being in the iceberg for 100 years. He's still mentally and physically and emotionally 12. But then he wakes up and sees Katara. And one thing we learn about Aang very quickly is that he's a fun-loving kid. And he develops a crush on Katara almost from the start. Basically, he imprints on her. We'll learn that Aang runs away from his situations when they don't go his way. He ran when he was the Avatar because he didn't want to lose his friendship and his family, and ended up losing his entire culture as a result. And he also runs away from the Guru later on, when he realizes he has to lose Katara. Katara is the parental figure of the group. She is very motherly, and that's due to the loss of her mother when she was only a child, and also feeling responsible for that death. So Katara takes Aang under her wing and looks after him, even trying to protect him from the knowledge that his people are dead. Aang grows to love the image of Katara he's built, of her caring and loving and patient side. She is basically his mom, or at the very least his older sister, and she takes on that role with almost everyone she meets who she loves long term, including her own older brother. And Sokka confesses that he can't remember what his mother looked like, and that when he thinks of his mother, all he can see is Katara. So, in my opinion, Katara needed a partner who would look after her in equal measure, not somebody that she needed to look after. She doesn't need another one of those, she's got plenty. I always thought that Aang would have been better off with Toph, personally, because, like with Zuko and Katara, they challenge each other. Now, Aang and Katara are fairly sweet. They have a lot of nice moments. But they do tend to either enable or glorify each other a lot. Katara encourages Aang to grow, yes, but she doesn't challenge him to do so. How to put this? I'm not blaming Katara, but I'm just saying how I don't like how this dynamic could have turned romantic. He has a crush on her, and throughout the entire series, we are left uncertain of Katara's feelings, because we're from Aang's perspective in this moment. The pursuit of Katara is from Aang's perspective, and we do get how close they are, but it's never overtly romantic from her perspective until the very last scene. Also, think about the people Katara is objectively attractive to, or seems to have romantic coding for, all of whom are slightly older than her, 16 or 17, and she doesn't have to look after them. They are maturer. Haru, Jet, and Zuko. Jet connects with her over the loss of his family due to the Fire Nation. Haru with his mother being gone and not being able to practice his bending. And Zuko under Ba Sing Se in the Crystal Catacombs, where Katara sees him as a person for the very first time, and he is willing to be vulnerable with her for the first time while they are alone. With Aang and Katara, it is emotional intelligence versus codependence. Aang acts as if Katara not being in his life would be the epitome of misery. That's not healthy. And he depends on her more often than anything else. And that almost frames Katara in the show as Aang's reward for saving the world. He literally yells at her and argues with her before leaving to find the lion turtle and learn the Deus Ex Machina that saves the show, but let's not get into the lion turtles. But the very next scene where they are together, They are on the rooftop and they are kissing. What? How does that make sense? Another thing is that Aang doesn't accept Katara's dark side. He doesn't appreciate her anger or sees it as anything even vaguely good. He sees it as a mistake, preaching forgiveness and that revenge shouldn't happen. But Zuko, who is very familiar with his own dark side, doesn't encourage Katara to embrace it. He simply says, I know who killed your mother, and I'm going to help you find him. He appreciates that this darkness needs to be faced, not just phased out. Aang does have trauma about what happened to his people, but he wasn't there when the genocide of the air nomads occurred. He saw the before and he saw the after. And he was able to move past it pretty quickly. He holds the weight and the guilt, and he is traumatized by it, I'm not going to deny that. But he moves on and still is able to be happy in a very light-hearted way. In a way that Katara and Zuko simply aren't. The war has defined their lives and weighs them down significantly. In terms of losing their mothers, they didn't just lose their mothers. Their mothers were lost out of protecting them. Kaya claims to be the last waterbender in order to save her daughter from being taken prisoner, and ends up dying for it. And Ursa, Zuko's mother, poisons her own father-in-law because her husband agreed to kill his own son in order to gain the throne. Aang's story arc in Season 2 is about letting go of earthly attachment. Him ending up with Katara undercuts this entire thing. To unblock his chakra, he needs to let go of these attachments in order to fully gain the Avatar state, and he needs this state to defeat Ozai and thus end the war, bringing balance to the elements again. And he refuses to do so in order to hold on to the first crush he's ever had. The difference between a crush and love is that a crush is the idealization of an image. You become fixated on a dream of a person rather than who they are. Love is too small a word for too grand a thing, but allow me to put it like this. It is acceptance, it is striving, it is challenging, it's messy, but it's worth it. And that's the difference between Aang and Katara and Zuko and Katara. Aang sees the perfect woman in Katara, while he is 12 and she is 14. But while he is still very much in the 12-year-old mindset, Katara was forced to grow up into a mother figure from when she was 8 years old. Zuko sees that weight. He doesn't just see the sadness, he sees the anger, the frustration, the darkness. When Katara bloodbends, he's shocked, but he doesn't even question it. He never brings it up. He is just, okay, she can do that. Not judging, moving on. I always saw it as him being rather impressed by it. Maybe that's just my interpretation. I don't know. But he doesn't question it. He doesn't encourage her to take her anger out on Yanra. He just says, I know you have to confront this. I know where to go. I'll take you there. And the rest of it is just her leading the way and him supporting it. Him supporting this drive that she needs to fulfill in order to find peace. He knows how hard it is to find peace in yourself when you have gone through something that dark. And he just lets her do it. He doesn't encourage her and he doesn't detract from it. He just lets her do it. And I appreciate that. I think that this emotional maturity for their ages is what truly binds them. Yes, Sokka is mature for his age too, as is Aang and Toph. They all are for their own ages. But Katara and Zuko truly stand beyond the rest. Zuko was traumatized in a way that was much more visceral than Aang. His own father burnt basically half of his face off. And he had nothing except his uncle and a few soldiers. That's it. In terms of symbolism, water and fire. Him learning to adapt to every situation, much like the people of the water tribe, and her fiery spirit. Sun and moon, Tui and La, blue and red. You rise with the moon, I rise with the sun. The blue spirit, even though he is from the Fire Nation, and her, the painted lady, a Fire Nation spirit of a river. Her also wearing red and having red painted on tattoos. Aang likes to respect authority. He tries to go by the rules and follow procedure. Through their vigilante personas, Katara and Zuko get more done outside of the law. I think that Zuko and Katara challenge each other to be better. Their arcs couldn't happen without the other. She is one of the major things that keeps him from capturing Aang, which in turn gives him time to grow, and he is the push that keeps her striving to continue to get better with her bending, and also her mental fortitude. Their childhoods were ruined, and the weight of the war is heavy on both of them. If they did marry, if they got together afterwards, it would be a sign of forgiveness between the two. A political marriage, because Katara is the daughter of the Southern Water Chief. And who is the daughter of the Northern Water Chief? Princess Yue. Katara is the princess of the Southern Water Tribe, even though it's never said aloud. The Water Princess and the Fire Prince. How perfect would that be? The war lasted 100 years. The other nations wouldn't simply roll over and say, okay, once the Fire Nation said sorry. The perfect symbolic and political match to end the war would have been that marriage between Zuko and Katara. I think Zuko would have supported Katara through almost anything, and she would have done the same. They would check each other's flaws, but also not judge them for it. Aang pushes Katara to be perfect, and Mai pushes Zuko to be the Fire Prince. Speaking of Mai, she doesn't change or grow very much throughout the show. I love Zuko more than I fear you. A boss-ass line. But she doesn't change her moral code. She almost seems amoral, in my opinion, and she doesn't want to listen to Zuko. When he says, "It's been 3 years since I've been home. I wonder what's changed. I wonder how I've changed," she yawns and says, "I just asked if you were cold. I didn't ask for your whole life story." She doesn't listen. She doesn't change. She calls him a traitor to her country, rather than look at how her country treats the world. Their negative traits feed each other's. She feeds his despondency, and his apathy feeds hers. She's almost lethargic, while he wants to be active, but he is struggling with how to be active. So having a girlfriend who is so amorally lethargic really would not help him at all. And I'm not saying that Mai didn't love Zuko. I'm simply saying that that love is not healthy. I think that Aang and Katara wouldn't have worked long term, even though we know it did in Korra. I don't think Katara would have just sat by while he favoured Tenzin at Bumi and Kaya's expense. I also think that Zuko could have been the dad figure of the group. We see him put a hand on Katara's shoulder when she's about to go off and scold him in a motherly way, when he storms off to go and meet the Deus Ex Machina lion turtle. He says, let him go, he needs to sort this out himself. That's a fatherly thing right there. And also, I think, even though they had limited interactions, I think that Toph is the little sister that Zuko should have had. Just a personal opinion. As for how Zuko and Katara act around each other, the way they move around each other almost mirrors each other. That push and pull, the balance, they work. very well. And it's a struggle. Zuko becomes desperate for her forgiveness, to the point where he goes to her brother to ask what to do in order to be forgiven. And he sees her true sides, all of them. The kindness, the motherliness, the darkness, the anger, the rage. And he doesn't judge her. He accepts her and encourages her to grow. To face it on her own, with his support in the background should she need it. And she, I think, does the same. They see each other plainly, when both Aang and Mai never really recovered from the idealization. They knew the other had negative sides, but they seemed to choose to ignore it. And that is just not healthy. Heck, even Dante Bosco and Mae Whitman, the voices for Zuko and Katara, have said that they think the two were in love, but were never able to embrace it before it was too late. Heck, have you seen some of the merch that Dante Bosco has? He has a Zutara hoodie he put on Twitter. Honestly, that's a king move. And even Uncle Iroh says in a companion piece that he wonders if Zuko and Katara would be a reasonable match. I mean, jeez! Pretty much everything was going for it, apart from the writers. But I'm not going to go into how the writers screwed them over outside of the writing of the actual show. Much has been said about that, and I'm not going to. There is the argument that Zuko is a colonizer, and that it would be very much a John Smith and Pocahontas situation, where it's a romanticized version of something that would be highly exploitative. Now, Zuko was raised with a colonizer mindset, to a degree, or at least in a colonizing society. But let's put things in another perspective here. I'm not going away from this point, though. Let me clarify. Iroh basically colonized more people than anyone else in the show, apart from Ozai and Azula themselves. And we all absolutely love him. Go, Uncle Iroh. Love you, dude. But he grows out of that and makes sure Zuko doesn't fall down that path. He is there. He is basically the angel on Zuko's shoulder, while Azula and Ozai would be the devil on their shoulder. I think that Zuko, he went in, caused a bit of a ruckus to show that he meant business, but then got right down to business by saying, "Where's the Avatar? If you hand him over, I won't hurt you." And when they don't hand him over, he attacks. But he's not there to colonize. He is someone who has grown out of that mindset by seeing what the oppression of his people has done to the rest of the world. Zuko alone is far more than filler. So I think that through that growth, and through seeing it through Katara's perspective as well, would have led him to see how positive it would have been. I think there was a real, genuine, deep connection there. Sun and moon. Blue and red. Tui and La. Balance. That is what Zuko and Katara could have been. Which is why I prefer their fanfictions. What can I say? I've got a whole nother channel about fanfiction. Check me out, PJ's Reads, I'm on there. I'm working on Zutara right now. Anyway, thank you for spending time with me, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. This has been PJ. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.